r/AskReddit. Parents of Reddit, what is the weirdest thing you caught your children doing? We caught my sons, maybe 6 and 3 at the time, both sitting on the toilet together, one behind the other, pooping. They told us it was a double poop. We forbid them from ever doing that again. Is it weird that my brother and I also did that when we were young? Multiple times. Not for fun. But if one of us needed to go really badly and the other was using the toilet, why did I go into detail? Help. A little girl I was babysitting was slowly stirring her bowl of chocolate ice cream into mush. I asked her what she was doing, and she replied very seriously, "I'm making poo-poo for God to put in people's bottoms." Packing turds into cardboard tubes with toilet paper and hiding them under the sink. She called them poop bombs. There was like 10 of them under there. Did she have specific plans for them, like selected targets, or just making a stockpile for what-if situations? I saw my kid, who was 4, in the backyard looking for bugs or worms. He grabbed something and put it in his mouth. I asked him about a few minutes later. He said he ate a worm. I laughed and asked why. He said he wanted to know what it tasted like. So I asked what did it taste like. He said it tasted like mud. The next day I asked him if he really ate a worm. He replied yay in the most defeated and embarrassed way any human could. "You'll live, you'll learn, eh?" When my daughter was little, old ladies would come over and enthusiastically ask her simple questions, like "What's your name?" and she would always reply in flat monotone, "Birthday cake." Then they'd ask another question like, "Oh, well, how old are you?" and she'd say, "Birthday cake." They would look over at us with great concern. So annoying. Caught my 2-year-old son licking the floor. He seemed really into it. My 2-year-old licks our cars. When my son was 3 years old, we noticed the smell of burnt plastic coming from our heater vents. I called one of our friends that worked in heating and cooling and he came over. Our furnace was in our crawl space, so he went down. About 15 minutes later, he asked me to hand him 3 black garbage bags through one of the vents, so I did so. He came up later with 3 bags of plastic toys. I had wondered where all my son's toys were going. I asked my son why he was putting toys down the vents. He said, "Mommy, there are alligators down there and if I don't feed them my toys, they will eat my sister." My youngest daughter was about 18 months old. She had, about a week before, discovered how to climb out of her own crib. Also, about a month before, she had once taken off her own diaper, not a repeat event but a one-time thing. My Mill was visiting us, and we were all slow to wake up. Around 7:30, the baby monitor alerted me that my daughter was awake, but happy and content in her crib. I let my wife sleep in, and I grabbed a quick 5-minute shower before going to grab her. When I got there, she had put the 2 pieces, climb out of crib, and take off diaper together, and used them to repaint her room. I will never recover from the trauma of the smell. At the time, I was pregnant with my second child. I walked past the bathroom and heard my firstborn son, who was about 1.5 years old, in there making coughing sounds. I go in to look and he was standing by the toilet coughing into it. I had horrible morning sickness and he was mimicking me throwing up. Just the other day I saw my 3-year-old head to the bathroom and I hear splashing. In a light panic I run to the bathroom thinking I'm going to have to figure out how to get a plumber during quarantine. I walked in and he's just standing in front of the toilet plunging away absolutely correctly with his Hot Wheels on the floor and not in the toilet. Damn kid refuses to use the toilet but he's more than happy to plunge it of his own accord. I caught my twins in 1st grade measuring each other's penises with a tape measure they got to measure their heads in 1st grade for bike helmets. I walk in after their baths and one is on his back with his legs the air. Of course my husband said, "That's not something you do until high school." My 5-year-old nephew went to feed the chickens yesterday. I told him to get a hat. He came back fully naked with gumboots and a straw hat on. Apparently the last time he went to the chicken house they pecked at his junk, and he wants to show them that it's not big enough to eat yet. Kids are weird. If chickens pecked at my junk, I'd put many more layers on it instead of exposing it. I woke up to my 5-year-old spraying Windex on the window beside my bed, cleaning it thoroughly, then nodding at me and moving on to cleaning the windows in the next room. I still don't know what the hell was happening. Edit. She told me before bed that it needed cleaned so her cat could look out. The bottom of the windows gets smeared because the cats push their faces against it. So she wanted it clean for them. Let's see. My daughter was drinking strawberry milk and then spitting it back into the cup so she could drink it again. I had hosed off a tarp and it was drying on the patio. We went outside and she just stooped down and took a drink out of a puddle on the tarp. Just today I was in the garage and she came out, instantly grabbed a toothbrush I used to clean car parts and stuck it in her mouth. I don't even know anymore. When my son was about 3 years old, he liked to wash his eyebrows with my facial cleanser. Just the eyebrows. Wet, lather, rinse, repeat. He said it made them nice and soft. When my brother-in-law was 3, he was so obsessed with a toilet plunger they had to buy him his own so he'd stop grabbing the used one. It was his best friend. Once my cousin took her preschooler to our version of the dollar store and let her pick something for everyone in the family for a Christmas present. She bought my uncle her grandfather a plunger. He spent most of that Christmas with it stuck to his bald head. He's a good sort. My brother decided he wanted a pee hat, which is literally what it sounds like. A hat he could pee in during the night. While already a stupid idea, since he didn't empty it, he chose a plastic hat with hole in it. Edit. It was a toy construction hat with 2/4 holes in the top, meaning his makeshift toilet has 2/4 holes for the pee to leak from, and he was keeping it in his toy box. My mom caught me bringing eggs from the kitchen into my room and sitting on them in a blanket nest, hoping they'd hatch. What she didn't catch was that I had been doing this for a while and would put the eggs back into the fridge when they wouldn't hatch after a few days. My 3-year-old's first joke was, "Hey, look at my armpit," and she would point at her armpit and laugh. She would do this over and over. They warn you about first steps and first words, but first joke? I am a proud dad. Edit. Thanks for the gold. I'll give my daughter a gold star tomorrow. Not a parent, but when I was a kid I used to prefer to poop in the park closest to my house instead of at home. I used to wonder who cleaned up my poop every day because the poop was always gone by the next day. After months of doing this I found out a neighbor mom was the one who kept cleaning up my poop. I was mid-poop one sunny afternoon when I saw her walking towards the park from her condo across the road with a baggie, probably because she had a chore every day that included going to the park to clean up my poop before her children could go play. I was squatted atop the playground in one of those wooden cubicles at the top of a slide, peering out through a crack between the wooden pillars, watching the neighbor mom coming closer, trying to finish my poop at a rapid pace. I finished my poop, didn't wipe, because I was a disgusting child pooping in a park, yanked my pants up and flew my poopy ass down the slide and booked it through the field to home base, raced through the door and continued to live my best life until there was a knock on the door. My mom answered the door and to my horror there was neighbor lady, and she and my mom had a long talk and outside on the front step. When my mom came in she looked at me with pure disgust and said no more pooping at the park. My older brother's friends were over and overheard my mom scream that at me. They demanded to know the whole story. Then when I started kindergarten, one of the children of the poop picker upper neighbor mom was in a grade ahead of me and recognized me and told everyone what I had done. I was and always will be the park pooper. Edit. I did not have a very good childhood. I should definitely clarify that. I have no explanation other than I was probably neglected. I'm shocked at how this blew up. Thought I was just telling my poop story. Thanks guys. When my son was 3, he had night terrors for a few months. At least that's what I suspected. I was really concerned. The most unsettling thing he did wasn't waking up sobbing though. Sometimes he would wake up around midnight, walk to where I was, stare at me and then walk back to bed. He wouldn't respond to me and just sit on his bed while staring at the ground. If I tried to comfort him, he would become angry and violent. Next morning, he'd be his normal self. At that time he would often ask if ghosts were real. We never exposed him to anything with that sort of content. I'd try to reassure him that they were just imaginary. He would insist that they were real. Sometimes at night he would call me to his room and say someone was there. I was freaking out a little. Not just by the idea that my child was seeing strange shit, but that he might be suffering from psychological issues. My wife insisted that this wasn't something to be concerned about. She's a psychologist and I respected her opinion, but I just couldn't stop worrying. I felt like I needed to help my kid. Anyhow, it became less and less frequent and stopped altogether for the most part. He still asks about and insists that ghosts are real from time to time, but he isn't scared at night anymore. Packing peas from our garden up her nose. This required a trip to the local hospital emergency room, where the doctor, a dad of several young children himself, thought it was hilariously funny, so my wife and I were laughing as well. When my little brother was 3, he's 25 now, he stuck an M&M up his nose. The doctors said to just let it melt. The babysitter was quite concerned when red and then brown started dripping out of his nose. For a while, our family joked that M&Ms melt in your nose, not in your hand. The M&M slogan at the time was they melt in your mouth, not in your hand. I was a child. I was in my backyard and noticed there were a lot of slugs around since it had been raining. I was concerned that they had nowhere to go and they would be stuck outside where they would drown in the rain. So I went to the garage and got a bin and went around collecting every slug I could find. Then I got the idea to make it into a miniature city. I put in water, muff sticks, etc. and it became a project of mine that I maintained for weeks. Well, one day my mom walks outside for whatever reason and finds me holding a bin that's just full of slugs. She made me put them back and hose the bin down. I was pissed I lost all my hard work. Not a parent, but when I was younger I caught my sister shitting on the carpet. She hadn't had an accident and a little bit ended up on the carpet. She was full on shitting on the carpet. Needless to say, my parents weren't too impressed. Not a parent, but my little sister used to do pretty weird stuff. She used to lay over the side of the couch so her head was upside down and drool spit down her face until it filled her nose. She said that it would go through her nose back into her mouth like a circle. Okay, all the rest of the stuff here is cute or funny, sometimes sad. This is legitimately weird. My daughter had her door locked, which is odd. I gave her some privacy for a while, but then I got worried, so I made her open the door and she was watching a political debate. She was 13. Edit. This was dial-up days, so probably not porn, lol. Upon hearing that my preteen daughter tried to escape home via her bedroom window, I spoke up to her. I showed her how easy it is to just walk out the front door. Found my kid talking to the hole in the sink when he was 2. Turns out that's where he said God lives. Carry on, you weirdo. X's eldest hoarded cardboard tubes. If asked, they were simply for later. The youngest adopted and formed a strong emotional bond with a garlic for about a week. I used to sleepwalk when I was younger. I once walked downstairs and locked myself in a closet. My mom woke up to me screaming downstairs in the dark. I was like 4 years old. I threw up in the hallway once when I was a kid because I couldn't make it to the bathroom. I told my parents in the middle of the night and went back to bed. I was 4 at the time. I heard my dad say, "Did she say she threw up last night?" About a second later I heard him fall. He said, "Yep," and I just fell in it. Hanging out by the pool. Our son, 7 at the time, had a shit-eating grin on his face and he's giggling with his arms up on the side of the pool. Kids are weird, so we didn't even think twice. Finally, after like 10 minutes of us just chatting with him in this position, he excitedly announces, "Hey dad, if you stand here and lean against this jet it feels real good. Come try." I spit my drink everywhere, stood up, and walked off so I didn't die ducking laughing in front of him. I totally abandoned my fiance to deal with that and just watched him try to keep it together through the window inside. It was phenomenal. Now we have to keep an eye out and shoo him away from the jet when we notice him lingering. Kids are gross. Not my child, but I've caught my sister doing multiple strange things as a child. The two most notable were, I once caught her playing with a bag with yellowish liquid inside when she was 10. She had pulled this bag from the side of her backpack. I asked her what it was. It was her own pee. She had been keeping it in there for days and once in a while she'd pull it out, go play with. I was horrified. When she was 8, she cut off her doll's hair, dismembered it and gave it a funeral which she made all of us attend. She went to dig it up several days later, but it wasn't there. She's done many other things, but those were the two weirdest things she did. My mother caught me licking butter from the box. Still remember the look of absolute horror on her face. Whoa. You made it to the end, you're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content bruh. It's free and that's a great price.